A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, if you are watching live, and a very warm welcome to those of you who are also watching the video recording. It's great to have your company here today for our first Directors Club United Kingdom Research Reveal webinar. My name is John Snow. I'm the founder and current chair of Directors Club United Kingdom. And today we are showcasing the first output from our Directors Club research unit. And it is titled Future of Person-to-Person Customer Communication. Now, this research project was generously supported and produced in collaboration with Kura and Inisoft. And Kura is a leader in outsourced customer management, and Inisoft is a leader in customer contact technology solutions. So right at the top of the show, a big thank you to Kura and Inisoft for making this research project happen. For this webinar, I'm going to be joined later by Arkib and Duncan. Arkib is the Director of Commercial for Kura, and Duncan is the Head of Professional Services from Inisoft. And both will be helping me analyze the research outcomes and giving some expert perspectives and opinions. But they'll be introducing themselves a little bit later on. So our agenda for the next hour is I'm going to give you a little overview of the research process, how it took place. Then I'm going to run through the headline outcomes. Now, whether you're watching live or watching the recording, you don't need to take notes, especially for the live people, because you will be receiving the recording post the event. Also, everybody who is engaging with this Research Reveal webinar will receive a copy of the research report, which will give you all of the outcomes and a lot of the insight. Now, after I've presented the headline outcomes, we're going to hand over to our expert pundits and analysts for today, Arkib and Duncan, and they'll be giving a presentation giving some perspectives and insights from their side. We're then going to have a Q&A session, and you can ask questions at any time during the presentation. You can do that by hitting the question function, which is a question mark on your control panel. And those questions will come through to me, and we'll address as many of those during the Q&A session, which will take place at the end of the presentations today. Please do not use the chat function, because I won't be monitoring that for questions. So if you've got a question, use the question mark on the control panel. So, in terms of the research process, we created a brand new research faculty to facilitate this piece of research, because this is the first research project for the Directors Club Research Unit. So that 100-person faculty was drawn from our membership, and they were leaders, or are leaders, in customer-centric roles, and those include customer service, customer experience, customer contact, operations, insight, digital, and social. So if I was to summarize that, they're stakeholders in customer interaction, customer communication. And the respondent sample, in terms of the organizations that the faculty represent, are pretty representative of the UK contact center sector in terms of size and business activity. So I think we've got a pretty strong representative set of research outcomes. So, in terms of setting the scene, just to give you an insight on how we actually executed the research, we used a cloud-based research tool called Typeform. They're based in Barcelona, and if you're thinking of doing any research yourselves in your organizations, Typeform is a great tool to use. We constructed a very simple to use and interactive research form, and I'm going to go through the research outcomes that produced. So to set the scene, we asked people what channels they offered to their customers in terms of customer service inquiries. And we found the results, well, pretty standard in terms of what you would expect. So in terms of the voice channel, voice over the telephone, and email, those were pretty much universally offered as channels. 99 and 98% of respondents said that their organizations offered those channels. You'd expect that, and that probably hasn't changed in the last 5 or so years. Now, interestingly, half of respondents still offer face-to-face customer service through branch or store. That was a bit of a surprise to me, but interestingly, about 50% still offered face-to-face customer service. And in terms of the sort of the movement towards self-service, we found that online FAQs were the most prevalent form of automated self-service, with 91% of responding organizations offering that channel to their customers. But then we asked questions about how things are moving in the future. And what we found is 1 in 5 responding organizations currently offer some form of basic customer service chatbot. And 16% offer, that's an additional 16%, offer more sophisticated virtual agent or virtual customer assistants. So we've got an idea that sort of 1 in 5 are looking at chatbots, and 16 out of the 100 are looking at slightly more sophisticated automated solutions. We then found that an overwhelming majority of respondents, 92%, have a strategy in place to deflect a greater proportion of customer service inquiries to automated or self-service channels in the future compared with today. So automated or self-service, that's the chatbots or other forms of self-service like the FAQs, but also things like search-aided service results, etc. Now, thinking about that 92%, those 92 out of 100 organizations that have that deflection strategy, we found 95% hope to deflect high frequency, low complexity inquiries away from person-to-person channels. Person-to-person channels most commonly being voice through the contact center, web chat, and email. Nearly half of all respondents, 49%, state that they class more than 30% of customer service inquiries via person-to-person channels as being low complexity. And for nearly a quarter, that proportion is over 50%. So what we're seeing here is this focus on those low complexity inquiries that perhaps customers don't want to have to go to a person to get the response or the answer to. And we're seeing organizations wanting to make sure that those low complexity, high frequency inquiries in the future land up in an automated self-serve channel environment. Now, in terms of, I've touched on there, perhaps the customers want this or expect this. And our research has shown that 2 in 5 responding organizations estimate that more than half of customers want or expect these low complexity, simple inquiries to be handled via automated or self-service channel in the future. And for more than 1 in 5 respondents, the proportion is higher than 70%. So 20 out of the 100 organizations think that 70% of customers want or expect the simple inquiries to be handled by automated or self-service channels. So in terms of looking towards future investment, based on the research that I've just commented on, it's not a surprise to find that 1/3 of respondents forecast that more than 70% of their organization's total low complexity customer service inquiries will be handled by automated or self-service channels in 3 years' time. And therefore, it's also no surprise that expansion of digital self-service capabilities was cited as the investment priority for 82 out of the 100 respondents. But it's not all about cutting capacity. Interestingly, 1 in 10 respondents, so 10 out of the 100, still expect an expansion in total of contact center capacity over the next 3 years to handle more person-to-person interactions. What we didn't do, ladies and gentlemen, is dig down into what was driving that expected expansion capacity of the contact center among that 10%. I expect it is more to do with business expansion than it is about growing the contact center based on the same volume of business today. However, I didn't dig down into that, so I don't have any proof of that. But interestingly, we found there is a expected rise in the status of the contact center. So looking ahead 5 years, 91% of respondents foresee contact center agents having a higher job status compared with today. And this comes back to the shedding of those low complexity, simple inquiries, leaving the contact center to primarily deal with much more detailed, complex, difficult, and emotional interactions. And because of that, the status of the contact center and the agents is on the rise. 39% expect agents to enjoy much higher job status. So not just slightly higher job status, much higher job status, acting as more of a consultant in the future. Again, that's really interesting and reflects the change in what's happening or what's expected to happen in terms of the type of inquiries that land up in the contact center once those high volume, low complexity inquiries are handled by automation or self-service. So, with this higher job status, will the contact center agent be earning more in the future? In response to this question, we found 2/3 of respondents expect contact center agents to require higher levels of qualification and expertise in 5 years' time. Leading on to 3/4 of respondents expect the contact center agent to be, on average, paid more in real terms in 5 years' time compared with today. And again, I expect that is due to the fact that the contact center agents operating in 5 years' time will be of that higher status with those higher qualifications and expertise, dealing with those more difficult, challenging inquiries, and therefore being paid accordingly, according to 3/4 of the respondents. So that is the overview of our research outcomes. So thank you to our 100 faculty members. Really interesting insights. And what I'm going to do now is hand over to Arkeeb and Duncan, and they're going to give some perspective on the research from the Kura and Inisoft angle. So I'm just going to hand over control of the presentation. So just bear with me for one moment. There we go. So welcome to Duncan and Arkeeb. Hopefully you can hear me clearly and I can hear you clearly. Welcome.
Hi John, I can hear you loud and clear. Thanks for handing over control.
Great stuff. Over to you guys.
Great. Thanks for that, John. Obviously, the survey that you just took us through, very insightful information, and we're going to build on some of those points that you raised and just give a different kind of perspective, a perspective from Kura and Inisoft. So, firstly, let me introduce myself. My name is Arkeeb Mughal. I'm the Director of Commercial at Kura, and with me today is Duncan McCunn, who is our Head of Professional Services at Inisoft. Now, Duncan and I will spend the next 15 to 20 minutes or so giving you a brief overview of our business, but also our thoughts and views on automation and AI and how that will impact person-to-person communication. So looking at it from an AI and automation perspective. But firstly, let me just give you a quick context of who we are at Kura. So as a business, we, as John mentioned earlier, we provide outsourced contact centre management services to some of the UK's leading brands. We've been going for 25 years, probably more now. I keep saying 25, so it's probably 26 or 27 years. We're a privately owned business, so we control our own destiny to that extent. We have 4 sites, all in the UK. We're a UK-based outsourced provider. And we have Inisoft, which is our software business. Duncan will give us a little bit more in terms of the detail of what Inisoft actually do in a minute. But what I would just say, as a business, what's different about us? I would say it's our culture. It's the reason why we are in business, why we exist. It's this very different approach and thinking that we have that drives us as a business, and that will set the context, I think, for some of the kind of opinions that we'll have around person-to-person communication. So, very quickly, what is our culture about? Why is it so different? We believe in outsourcing, particularly in the industry. There's 2 structural problems. One being the relationship of the organisation with the advisor. The advisors in our industry, and probably most contact centres to a degree, are thought as a commodity. Our people are poorly coached, poorly developed, and not well supported. And we believe that is to the detriment of the end customer. We also believe there is a challenge around the relationship with clients and suppliers. Many of you either probably have experienced first-hand outsourced relationships or been in it or heard of it. It's a very transactional kind of environment. It tends to be master-servant in terms of how the relationship operates. There's no real ideas being generated. The suppliers aren't really challenging and creating innovation for clients. And once again, we believe that's to the detriment of the end customer and the customer service that gets delivered. So why is that different? Why do we believe that that's different for us? Well, it's different because we're trying to build a business that focuses on people inside the business, helping them understand themselves, helping them make the distinction between the things and stuff they do and the behaviours that drive them and the behaviours that hold them back. This distinction has actually got a name, it's got a phrase in our business. We call it to help people cross the bridge. And it's a mental bridge you need to cross from stop thinking about people from the prism of the things they do to how they actually do it, more focusing on the behaviours. At the bottom there it just says our vision statement. Our vision is to be unrivaled in developing people, and that's just not in the outsourcing industry, it's just not in Scotland or UK, it's across all organisations, across all industries. It's a very bold and ambitious vision, but something that excites us, something that motivates us to do better. So, why have I told you all this? I want you to explain all of this to give you the context of why we've asked John and the team to conduct the research. We know customer service is changing. We know the automation in AI is going to drive changes within our customer service environments. And it will naturally and inevitably have an impact on advisors' skills required and the jobs that they will do. So we're naturally very interested about that because we've got thousands of people, with a business, got thousands of advisors taking calls or taking contacts. The industry is changing, so we'd like to really understand what that is going to be in the future. So I'm just going to hand to Duncan, who will just give us a little minute on Inisoft.
Thank you, Archie. Yeah, as you can see on screen, I've just got a few points to tell you about who Inisoft are and what we do. Inisoft are a UK-based software company. We are part of the Kura group, and we have a global reach with customers in countries around the world and a variety of business sectors. Although we are platform agnostic, we are Avaya's agent desktop and global scripting partner, and you can actually purchase our software under OEM agreements from Avaya. We've deployed more than 15,000 desktops worldwide, and we believe ourselves to be the agent desktop experts. We focus on solutions that empower the agent and improve that customer experience. We firmly believe if the agent can concentrate on the customer and not the technology, it's going to be a better experience for both parties and obviously improve the business function. As part of the Kura group, we are in a very fortunate position in that we can use those outsourced clients and we not only use, but we actively pursue the agents for things that we can improve in our software. So we're in a very fortunate position there that we can, make improvements in our software from an agent's point of view. Now, just to look at some of the statistics that came out in the survey and drill down a little on these. The statistics see 92% of organisations have a strategy in place to take a greater proportion of customer service queries to automated or self-service channels in the future. There's no surprises here. It makes perfect economic sense for businesses to replace low complexity voice interactions with the introduction of automated or self-service channels. As a result, 92% already have a strategy for customers to take a self-service route, and 95% are looking to automate their low complexity transactions. Online self-service for the simple stuff is the way forward, and we find that encouraging and we embrace it. The repetitive transactions with low financial or perhaps low emotional value are the ones that clients want to complete themselves. They want to do that. And as the demographic of the population moves forward, it will become expected. Not only they want to do it, they'll expect to be able to do that. For example, automated process such as resetting your password. It's now universally accepted as being self-service. And it's just one example of how these straightforward interactions have been automated. However, when an agent does engage person to person, they may be dealing with a client who has had to contact them as a last resort, and they may be very frustrated at the process they've had to go through not being able to self-serve. The agent will have to be skilled in dealing with a frustrated client and have the technology, importantly, have the technology in place that lets them see the journey that that client has taken and provide a route to resolution along with that empathetic approach that they need to adopt. So that's what people are looking to do in the future. Today, 90% of organizations use chatbot and 16% use virtual agents for the customer. With only those 90% of companies currently using chatbots and 16% using virtual agents, we're going to see a major move in the near future. And as the research also showed, 70% of these clients expect to be using them in the future. So there's a shift coming, and that shift will not only be in low complexity interactions, it may also move to those medium complexity interactions being serviced by chatbots or virtual agents. And what we understand is that currently organizations are trying to work out how to embrace that evolution. but technology will have to improve to automate those more complex interactions as those customers' expectations increase. And because customer uptake is going to come naturally, again, as that demographic changes. More and more will be expected of automated services. And at Inisoft, we've recognised that with chatbots and artificial intelligence, with natural language understanding, we'll see the future of those chatbots and virtual agents become the norm, just like resetting your password. And Inisoft, what we are doing is we are building and investing significant resource into artificial intelligence that improves as it performs. And we have developed an AI engine, NISO, to automate processes where possible. What we've also got to ensure is that any chats that do escalate to a live agent can show that full history and context of the customer journey so the agent can deal with that in an empathetic manner.
Thanks, Duncan. So skills for the future. So I think from John's initial research that John touched on, what Duncan's touched on, it's clear that almost everyone is on the path of automation. There's a strategy in place for most organizations to reduce or redirect the volume coming into contact centers through some form of automation. So the focus needs to be, as Duncan says, understanding the relative complexity of transactions with customers, both from a customer and an advisor perspective. We have to look at the view of automating the lower complexity transactions. The survey does back that up. John mentioned earlier, in the next 3 years, a third of respondents said that more than 70% of their total low complexity transactions will be automated. So businesses are looking at that low complexity, low hanging fruit, as to say, to automate that. So what's going to be left? What's going to be left if we're going to automate everything that's low complexity? Well, it'll be the complex stuff by default, or those things that actually fall out of the online automated journey. In both of these scenarios, you'll have customers who are probably going to have difficult issues to resolve. Customers will probably have higher expectations, because if we get the automation correct, if we get the technology correct, the customers will expect the advisors to have the same level of proficiency as the systems are having when they're doing it on an automated basis. They'll expect when they speak to somebody to have, for the advisor to know the context of their query, what they've done before, for them to be more informed while they are on the phone or through web chat or whatever it may be. So they'll expect the advisor to have that information and deal with them in an intelligent way. So as you can see from the slide there, nearly 2/3 of respondents said that they believe that future advisors, future agents, will have a higher level of expertise than compared to today. What I did there was I pulled together some information from a previous research study we did last year, which kind of ranked the top 3 skills needed for an agent in the future. And it was problem-solving skills, empathy, and emotional intelligence. So customers will want highly knowledgeable people on the phones or the contacts that will understand their issue, the interaction they've had so far, so the journey the customer's been on so far, and be able to take control and resolve the query. So they're looking for problem-solving skills, not sympathizers, but empathizers, and have the ability to understand the emotional level of the requirement on the transaction. We believe these 3 skills alone will be sought after in contact centres environments in the future, and it's up to businesses to invest in our people, to train them and empower them to take more control and engage with customers to solve these types of queries. I think our advisors will utilise these skills that are being trained. They'll be expected to interact with AI and robotic tools going forward, as Duncan mentioned, while they deal with customers. So they'll have a mixed bag of dealing with complex issues, dealing with systems, and I think John called the advisor would be turning into a consultant in the future. I absolutely agree. I'd go as far as saying I think we may be renaming the advisor in the future to a consultant or a customer engagement technician that will be dealing with the complexity from a system and from the kind of human interaction perspective as well. Those that master those skills, those soft skills that are needed, and those technical requirements, those advisors will attract the advisor premium. And I'm just echoing what John said earlier around 2/3 expected to be advisors to be paid higher than in real terms, with a small portion saying significantly higher. I believe, I mean, I did a kind of seminar last year, and I said there would come a day where you'll have a customer advisor on the phone dealing with systems, dealing with complex environments, and they'll be hugely paid and hugely regarded in the future. So I think you will see a drive to value the advisor's role in the future as complexity increases within the contact centres, because the benefit of automation is removing low complexity. So, just moving on to Duncan.
Thanks, Archie. As you can see from the screen, advisors are going to require an omni-channel single agent desktop that can not only guide the agent through the call, providing next best actions and client context, but is also going to have all those interaction types available to the agents. And at Inisoft, we believe that the agent desktop again should allow the agent to concentrate on the customer and not the technology, and then seamlessly blend all these interaction types into a single agent desktop. Along with all the channels, we've also introduced something called Voice of the Agent, and giving them the ability to provide feedback on the calls and processes. And that's with a view to improving them and reaching that, when a call does come through, if it's high complexity or high emotional value, or it's low complexity and low emotional value that's been escalated, that we get that first call resolution that is so important to the business, the agent and the customer.
So, in summary, what are we saying about the future of person-to-person customer contact communication? Well, in summary, what we're saying, we can't stop. Automation and AI will change customer service. We know this. We've been hearing this for a number of years. There's an estimation of the number of jobs that will take away in our industry, or it will change the nature of jobs in our industry. So I think I would just say it's. I think what we have to expect is a change to be a constant thing, as we would say. I think for that we need to ensure that we're looking at agile processes and agile technologies, as I think automation and AI will continually change over the next few years. Chatbots are getting more clever, virtual assistants are getting more clever, RP is getting more powerful. So as these technologies continue to improve, our processes and our systems and our businesses will need to keep adapting to those changes. I think, however, it's a great opportunity for businesses to create efficiencies and improve customer experience. I think looking at those low complexity, those elements of transactions that can be automated, that will release value back into organizations. It doesn't necessarily need a human to interact with the customer, and I don't think a customer really wants to interact with a human if it's a simple query that doesn't have high value or high emotional content within it. And I think by designing those systems and processes through automation and having the customer at the heart of that, making them customer-centric, you'll improve by default the customer experience if you get the chance to do that. But what I would say is, customer experience won't be, you won't realize the benefit of customer experience if you haven't equipped your people with the right skills. So, when you've gone through a very clever technology process or automation journey, if the advisor then the phone restarts that whole process with you, or is not engaging in terms of the type of interaction that's needed, it will frustrate the customer. So we'll need to equip our people with the right skills. Otherwise, investing in technology that we'll put in will not be adopted by customers or advisors, because they won't have the skills or the experience in terms of outcomes. And finally, you need to be careful about the enabling technologies that you choose. I have a very simple kind of strapline that I always use when you talk about technology for customer service. Make it easier for our people to help customers. That's what our technology needs to do. So things that Duncan's talked about, having those ability to have systems which do all the hard work and let the advisor focus on the customer is the way forward in terms of the technology you choose to use. And my final slide there is just giving you an example of some of the clients that we work across the globe, from a customer management outsourcing perspective right through to technology and outsource services and Inisoft perspective. And what we get the benefit of that, we see a lot of emerging trends across a lot of different regions, a lot of different clients and a lot of different sectors. And then we have the benefit of kind of all the ability to try to cross-fertilize understanding and ideas and innovation across sectors. So that gives us a good mix of what we believe the future has for person communication, but also from an automation perspective. And that's us really, John. Handing over to you for questions.
Brilliant stuff. Well, thanks very much, Arkeeb, Duncan. Great insight, building upon and taking apart some of the points that we found in the research. So really insightful. And I'm going to leave this slide up here, ladies and gentlemen. So during our Q&A, so you've got contact details there if you want to note them down. Of course, you will have, if you're watching the live event, you will receive a link to this recording, so you can catch up and rewatch and come back to this page if you so desire. But in terms of questions, first question which has jumped out at me is, even though organizations, according to the research, are looking to offload low complexity, high volume, interactions, the simple stuff, as I think we've called it, to automated or self-serve channels, do you guys see that there are certain customer segments that will still, even for the simple stuff, require a contact center agent to help them?
Yeah, I think it's completely dependent on the actual process that you're trying to automate. You need to think very carefully about what you should automate and what you shouldn't. So, you know, something as simple as your parcel not being delivered today may not be of high importance. But if that parcel is, you know, due on Christmas Eve and it's not being delivered, then perhaps that process, you know, shouldn't be automated at that point. So not only is there a view to looking at what you should and shouldn't automate, it's when you should and shouldn't automate that process as well.
So
yeah, go on, sorry.
But just to build on Duncan's point there, John, I think you will get some low complexity contact which might have a high emotional impact. To Duncan's example there, the day before Christmas, if your parcel hasn't arrived, has a more emotional impact than maybe your parcel in any other given time, which you think would be quite a simple query. But from a customer demographic, so I think it's not only looking at the complexity of the transaction, but also look at your customer demographic. So you might look at customers who are be classed as vulnerable in nature. Those transactions may be, you know, low complexity for any other demographic, but for the vulnerable customer management base, that might be more complex. So not only at the nature of the contact, the timing of the contact, but also the customer demographic also plays a role in that, in understanding what can or can't be automated.
So do you think, from your perspective, both as solution providers and customers yourselves, do you see that we have to still present people with a choice? You know, you've got a choice to contact us person to person, a choice to do it through an automated channel, or a choice to do it through some other mechanism of self-service. Is that choice still important, or can we take out the phone number completely, disable the web chat, and just say, here is our particular branded chatbot, go ahead and use that only? What's your views on that in terms of choice?
I think, John, choice is still needed. I think the customer wants, in the last 10 years, we've had 5 new contact channels come into our industry. Customers want choice, they want to have control, and I think by taking away choice, you potentially take away control from customers. So I think we've gone in the days where you know, the organisations and the contact centres controlled conversations. They mandated the opening hours. They told you when to call, and then they would answer your query. If you didn't call within those segments, then you'd have to wait. That has changed in terms of the social media, the way our online impact has created. So I think by mandating contact channels, you're taking away control. So I would say no. I think choice is important. I think naturally, as demographics change, automation, AI, self-serve will become more natural. Voice will take a back seat, but what voice will take a back seat for is the more complex, the harder stuff, the ones that have high emotional content or value, or simply where things go wrong. And we know that things will always go wrong. It's the nature of customer service. Things will go wrong.
Yeah, and on that base, I've got a question. I've got a question from Steve about do the customers actually want this move towards automation? And I suppose that is about people trying things, going, oh, I've had a good experience of using that chatbot or that virtual agent or that form of self-service, and therefore once they've tried it and it was a good customer experience, they'll use it again. So do you think we have to, in a way, educate the customer and perhaps nudge them with things like, well, if you want to wait for a person, there's a 5-minute queue. Why don't you try the virtual agent in the meantime? Is there some way that we can educate and nudge towards the direction we want?
I absolutely agree. I shouldn't name the name, so I'm not going to name it. I am a person that does all my work online from a contact center perspective, but I had to pick up the phone recently, and I was 27 minutes in a queue before I spoke to somebody. But the IVR kept nudging me to come off the phone and go online. So I think there is the subtle hints for customers. I think the education part is important. What customers really want is not about us forcing automation upon them, making them want to have it. Customers really, at the core of it, they don't really want to call the contact centers. Who really wants to phone a contact center and say something's gone wrong? It's not a pleasant conversation most often. Customers really want a really low effort experience when they're dealing with organizations, when they're needing to get things done or needing to get things fixed. So if we can create automation that has a very low customer effort, people will want to use it. I think that's where it boils down to. Customers want low effort ability. So if we can create that, the adoption will come naturally.
And also, just to add to what Arkib's saying, as the technology continues to improve, it will become lower effort to complete your transactions, and there'll be no requirement to nudge people. They might automatically go and do that. But as the technology improves and improves and improves, you're going to see more and more people doing that.
And I suppose it's if you are giving people the choice and you are sort of educating them and nudging them to try the new channels and they have a good experience of it, naturally you will see a shift or deflection of volume over time, and that will be a natural shift as opposed to an enforced shift. Do you see organizations that will adopt that approach, whereas others might be a little bit more perhaps radical and prescriptive and say, we definitely want to save the cost now, and therefore we're going to switch off this channel in preference for this automated channel? Do you see there will be the sort of the give them choice organizations, and there will be the prescriptive, let's do a big bang on automation today? Do you see there'll be those two types?
Yeah, I think so, and I have seen those two types, John. I think I've seen it quite in varied sectors. I could take, the financial services industry, banking. I've seen organisations who are now actively pursuing online journeys for customers, wanting to shift their customers online, away from their traditional kind of contact channels, and it's going to be more or less a prescriptive approach, where they're going to trying to push customers and force customers to go down that route by making it more difficult to contact through conventional means. So I think you're going to get those that are going to suck and see and let the customers dictate the pace of the shift, as you said earlier, and some others which maybe focused on delivering the cost benefits, very quickly, or looking to drive the customers in that direction. Obviously, the latter comes with a health warning and a risk that if you're going to push customers in a certain direction, you have to watch your satisfaction and experience scores as a result of that, because I think the last thing customers want in this day and age is being told what's good for them.
And of course, just by putting something in place that you call a chatbot or a virtual agent isn't a silver bullet. It has to be good. You have to have set it up correctly. It has to have the right knowledge base behind it. It needs to be tried and tested. It's not an immediate panacea just because you put one in place. So it's something that needs to be well planned and the internal resources put in place to back up the move to automation. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Meaning there's no point putting something together which doesn't self-learn, doesn't have a deep, rich knowledge base, doesn't react to natural language environments. I think what you'll see with chatbots as they get more and more better, I think the channel that's going to disappear over time is going to be email. I think web chat will still keep going, although SMS might overtake that. But the email channel, that's where chatbots will actually come into their own, I think, because it's not an immediate transaction. Chatbots can give you a good response, and it will continue to learn. So I think you're absolutely right. Chatbots and virtual assistants need to have the intelligence within them. Otherwise, it'll be very frustrating for a customer when they're getting the kind of box responses, standard responses coming out from the tools.
And Duncan, just a question that's come in from Karen, which you've touched on, I think, in your presentation, but perhaps we'll just sort of come back to it. If we're going to be relying more and more on self-serve and automation as part of the customer service journey, if they do need to revert to person-to-person communication, it must be vitally important that the agent can see that automated self-serve journey so that they're not adding to the customer's frustration by repeating stuff that's been asked and inputted via those non-human channels. If you could just sort of expand on the importance of having that sort of single customer view.
Yeah, that single customer view is really important to both the agent and the customer, because as you've said, the agent then has the full context, and that can be, from a variety of channels. The customer may have started out with an email, they may have then went on to a web chat, and may have a variety of channels coming in to deal with their issue, whatever that may be. So the agent has to have visibility of that. As importantly, they have also got to have visibility of the history of interactions with that customer, and what's been going on over the last 6 months, 12 months, the history of that customer, with your business, so that you can accurately give the agent the context and the next best actions for that client. So seeing that history, seeing the current interaction, and what the issue is all vitally important for that agent, and allows that agent to speak very knowledgeably to that client.
Now, looking at the organizations that are probably going to be and are the earliest adopters of automation and other forms of sort of advanced self-serve, what business sectors, verticals are you seeing as the sort of the trailblazers, if you like?
Well, I think at the moment automation is coming in two forms. We're seeing it in retail, and we're seeing more and more retail environments adopting these type of tools. Financial services is deploying a lot of more robotics in RPA tools. And very recently, we've started seeing utilities looking at deploying chatbots into their kind of websites and being able to deal with some of those queries. So there's different industries are finding different aspects to this. Is there a trailblazer? I'm not so sure, John. I think automation and AI is such a thing that everybody is really talking about it, and everybody is really doing something about it, but have we mastered it and really got over to grips with it? Not. You have a few organizations which just stand out. You know, you look at the Amazons, etc. of this world. These guys are cut above the rest, but most other organizations are definitely wrestling with it. I think we've got that complexity of we really want this technology. We're really not sure what it's really going to do, and we don't know really the impact it'll have on the business I have today, but we really think it's a good idea. I was at a conference, I'll indulge with it, a couple of months ago on an AI and automation conference, and the speaker stood up and said, and I think he said within 5 years' time, you know, automation, contact center jobs will be all gone. So after the event, I went to the speaker and I said, you know, I've got a business with 2,000 advisors in it. How many jobs will I have? People's jobs will I have in 5 years' time? And he said, if you've got 1,000 today, you'll have 200 people in 5 years' time. And I said, really? And he said, okay, maybe you'll have 500 people. I said, well, really? And then his third answer to me was, well, not really sure, actually. So that's where we are. So, and those guys they're making the stuff up in terms of the understanding of technology. So it's anybody's guess, really.
I suppose what we should look to as sort of an indicator, because if I remember rightly, if you go back, you know, if you look at some of the sort of the most progressive company leaders of recent times, you look like, you know, Steve Jobs, etc. I think Steve Jobs had a good quote that we should always be looking at who is going to be eating our lunch. And we need to make sure that you know, basically we disrupt our own business to make sure that somebody else doesn't. And I suppose if we were to look, you know, putting myself in the position of, you know, a leader within a particular vertical, within the context of that vertical, is there a disruptive force coming along at the moment? So is there an app-only bank, an app-only insurance company? Is this something that, you know, is my vertical, my business, something that Amazon could do using all of its technology might? And if the answer is yes, we have these disruptive forces for change just on the horizon or actually happening now, what do we have to do to ensure our margins are sustained, that we are going to be competitive long term? So, yeah, it's I think it's a very interesting time for everyone. I think the fact that so many people are doing some form of planning, have a strategy in place regarding you know, sort of how things are going to go in terms of customer communication is probably an indication that people are looking at what will be the future shape of my business or my industry, which is very interesting. Now, we've got a question which is about from Magella, and the question is around, are there roles for contact center people today to move into the area of knowledge creation, knowledge management, which will drive the automated and self-serve channels of the future? So contact center agents today could land up potentially moving into roles around scripting of knowledge bases, etc. Do you see any opportunities there?
I think absolutely. You know, I think Duncan alluded to one of the tools that we have, and Inisoft is the voice of the advisor, where we are trying to pull information out of our people's heads and create themes and knowledge and training tools to help the experience for advisors and customers. So I think, yes, as automation, and we need to create that knowledge base and keep that up to date. People who usually know most and best in terms of the solutions to be provided for customers are usually our people on the front line. They can give you 3 reasons why something's not going to work and give you 4 reasons why it could change and could work. So tapping into that kind of large base of knowledge that we have of people is going to be key. So I think, yes, going forward, we will see, that's what I think the advisor's role will change. There'll be technicians or consultants that will interrogate systems and also use those soft skills to deliver the experience for customers. So I think there is a lot of potential for somebody who is a customer service advisor today who has a curious mind to learn and is analytical by nature will improve and flourish as automation kind of goes through the contact center services.
Now, responding to my previous question of are there verticals which are looking at, are there particular verticals that are being proactive in the area of adopting automation and self-serve, and Andrea has put a hand up and said law firms, and they're looking to use AI to drive automation strategies. So thanks for that. A final question, looking at building a business case for the change that is required to make sure the customer interaction infrastructure of the future is put in place. What are some of your sort of low-hanging fruit recommendations that people can do internally to build a case for, looking at making changes so that they are in line with the future sort of needs of the organization and the desires of the customer base around self-serve automation, and obviously also maintaining a capability in the contact center?
I think the things to look at, obviously, you need to look at your total ability of contact. So there's a financial business case of establishing the customer contact touch point and how that could shift or change through using different contact channels and technologies. So the cost of a voice channel is more expensive than a web chat, which is more expensive than a SMS, which is maybe more expensive than a chatbot. So there is the hard financial numbers that somebody that could do, but look at all the contact channels and the cost behind those. What I usually say on this is, from a business case, there's maybe 3 or 4 things that you want to always look at that inform a board in terms of investing wholly and solely into automation, or actually having a broad investment around automation, but also some sort of human form contact communication as well. First of all, understand your customer demographics and their preferences. So, that thing about prescription versus choice, make sure that we understand that and the board understand what is your demographics preferences. Look at your measures of success, and you may need to change them. So what you measured success was previously may not be what success needs to be in the future. Customer effort and customer contact resolution are measures that are good kind of barometers of how effective your service is. And then the third one, always take feedback. Listen to your customers. Take feedback from your customers. That will help inform, shape the board's thinking around where they should invest in. So I think it's take it in a broad approach. Understand your demographic, your customers. Look at your measures of success and listen to your customers.
I think that is a great opportunity to say thank you very much to you guys. I'll come to the thank yous in a moment. Just to say to anyone who posted a question which we didn't respond to during the webinar, all of the questions will be passed on to Arkeeb and Duncan, and they will get back to you directly. Some of the questions were quite technical and quite detailed, so it's much better if those are answered after given some considered thought. So to the thank yous, thank you to Kura and to Inisoft. Thank you for sponsoring the research. Thanks for coming online today and giving us your insight, both in your presentation and in the Q&A. Very, very good indeed. You can find out more about both organizations, both offerings at wearekura.com and inisoft.com. And finally, and particularly, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for spending some of your time to attend this webinar, whether you're watching live or watching the video. I hope to have your company again at another Directors Club event. You can visit directorsclub.house for more events information. You can email me on john.snow@directorsclub.house if you so wish. So until next time, my name is John Snow, and this has been a Directors Club United Kingdom presentation.